Hi there, this is Solitary Ronan from Solitary Ronan Films, and welcome to another episode of my director collection. Today I'm going to talk about the releases that I have for the Coen brothers. The Coen brothers don't seem to be as popular as they used to be amongst cinema aficionados. I mean, I guess if you look on their output, you could argue they are perhaps style over substance, demeanour over depth, but they have been relatively successful doing what they want to do. Obviously their output has kind of slowed down as they get older, like all of us, unfortunately. They've both done their individual projects, but I'm not going to talk about them because I haven't actually seen them. I haven't actually seen The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which was on Netflix, but I never got around to watching it. And as far as I know, that doesn't have a physical release apart from those Chinese companies on eBay that will send you a Blu-ray of pretty much anything. I do have Intolerable Cruelty, but it's not an official release, and I don't have The Lady Killers. Granted, Nazarene Prod did a video on The Lady Killers saying it needs kind of reappraisal. I've only seen it once, so I should probably pick it up cheap because I'm sure you can pick it up cheap. It's not that I'm a huge, gatekeeper of the original film. The Lady Killers is one of my favourite Ealing comedies. It's still very good. But I don't have Lady Killers, and Intolerable Cruelty I've maybe only seen twice. But again, I should really pick that up for cheap. But let's talk about the ones that I do have. So we'll talk about Barton Fink, which is just absolutely wonderful. Again, the Coen brothers are so good at time and place, and this is Hollywood. And the supposed golden years just during the war. John Turturro was this famous playwright who makes plays of the struggling working man, but then gets a job in Hollywood writing Wallace Beery fighting pictures. So he's struggling, and he lives in this terrible hotel with John Goodman as his neighbour. Co-stars Judy Davis. Michael Lerner is absolutely fantastic as the studio head. John Mahoney's wonderful, and John Polito is obviously a Coen brother regular, as is John Turturro. Is absolutely wonderful as well. Shot by Roger Deakins, who's done quite a lot of Coen brothers films. It looks absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, it's one of my favourite Coen brothers films. It is kind of dark and quite disturbing, but it's still lots of fun. Steve Buscemi's in it as well. Next is The Big Lebowski. Arguably my second favourite Coen brothers film. The Coen brothers are a bit funny because you'll have like Coen brothers fans. I know like Coen brothers fans who just don't get The Big Lebowski. I know Coen brothers films that don't get my favourite Coen brothers film. So it's kind of weird. They don't have like universal love even amongst their fans, because there will be some films that people just don't like. Which this one was the first time I saw it, and that's Burn After Reading. But I think the more I watch it, the more I actually really enjoy it. I think this one does have things going on under the surface. Usual all-star cast with George Clooney, Frances McDormand, of course, is married to Joel, John Malkovich, Tilda Swinton, Brad Pitt. Pretty much all these serious actors playing idiots, which is always quite enjoyable. Yeah, the first time I watched it, I really didn't like it and thought it was just kind of a throwaway, disposable Coen Brothers film, but it has grown on me substantially. And then, of course, their debut, which is absolutely wonderful, one of the classic neo-noirs of the 80s, Frances McDormand, the wonderful M. Emmett Walsh. I mean, there should be a statue of M. Emmett Walsh somewhere. Dan Hedaya, John Getz. Was this before he got his hand and foot acided, which isn't even a word, acided off by Jeff Goldblum? Yeah, I think this is after. He must have had surgery and got a new hand and a new foot. This is just absolutely wonderful. Again, real atmosphere, and just a wonderful performance by M. Emmett Walsh. His speech about Texas is absolutely fantastic. It's got a great ending, like quite a lot of Coen Brothers films do. Then one of the really underappreciated films, The Man Who Wasn't There. This is actually near the top of my favourite Coen Brothers films. Billy Bob Thornton, Frances McDormand. Don't know how she gets all this work with the Coen Brothers. James Gandolfini, Black and White, a young Scarlett Johansson. Tony Shalhoub is absolutely wonderful as a shyster lawyer. John Polito is in it, of course. Richard Jenkins. It's just the story of a barber, of course, in typical Coen Brothers fashion. There's a character who's convinced there's aliens about. It just looks absolutely gorgeous. This was shot by Deakins as well. Music by Carter Burwell, who does most of the music or sounds in Coen Brothers films. Just absolutely wonderful. And then this one, which again I haven't watched that often, and the first time I watched it, again very much like Burn After Reading, it kind of felt like a disposable Coen Brothers film. This is Hail Caesar. I really need to rewatch it again. Again, this is back in Hollywood territory. The same as Barton Fink, but obviously nowhere near as good. Josh Brolin, George Clooney, Ralph Fiennes, Jonah Hill, Scarlett Johansson, Frances McDormand again. How did she get work with the Coen Brothers? Tilda Swinton in a double role, and Channing Tatum. It's outrageously funny, apparently, according to the front. But yeah, this is at the level of Burn After Reading, after I actually watched it more often, so I need to really revisit Hail Caesar. This one's probably their most famous. It's Fargo, Frances McDormand. I think she won the Oscar, but again, I'm not really. It was nominated for 7 Oscars. Again, Roger Deakins, How to Photograph Snow beautifully. Bizarrely, I'm not as high on this as most of the Western world. I still think it's very, very good, obviously, but I do like more Coen Brothers films better. William H. Macy's brilliant, Frances McDormand, as I say, is brilliant. Steve Buscemi, Peter Stormare. Yeah, great snow film. It's right up there in the best snow films. But again, I just think they've done better. Then a double pack of True Grit and No Country for Old Men. No Country for Old Men did win the Oscar, which is quite surprising. True Grit, way better than the John Wayne version, even though I've never seen the John Wayne version, but because it's got John Wayne in it, the Coen Brothers version must be better. No Country for Old Men is absolutely wonderful. I actually saw that in the cinema, can you believe, when I used to go to the cinema. Tommy Lee Jones, Josh Brolin, Javier Bardem, hardly any score, just source music, which I absolutely loved. because at the time there's like music in films wall to wall, and the fact that kind of, well, the ending annoys some people, but I loved it. The fact that we don't see certain things that in these sort of films as an audience we expect to see, like the three main characters never actually meet, or we never see them meeting. It is kind of wonderful, and it is a surprise that it did actually win Best Picture, as if that matters, but because it is kind of playfully obtuse with the expectations of a crime film. Then True Grit, Jeff Bridges, Matt Damon's actually tolerable, and Josh Brolin, and Haley Steinfeld, who's obviously older now. I haven't actually seen her in much, but I don't follow modern cinema that much, especially modern American cinema. Yeah, two really good films. Jeff Bridges, wonderful, as you'd expect him to be. Their second film, which was a bit of a departure from their first film and a bit of a departure from their third film, Raising Arizona, or pretty much a live action Looney Tunes cartoon, which is actually harder to do than it would seem. Nicolas Cage in one of his seminal performances, Holly Hunter, John Goodman, William Forsythe, Frances McDormand. How did she get work with the Coen brothers? Randall Tex Cobb, about a kidnapping of a baby, a couple who just want to have a child. This was shot with Barry Sonnenfeld. Yeah, so much fun, and already by their second film, Blood Simple Then This, you could kind of tell that the Coen brothers are going to do what they want to do, not necessarily what people would like them to do. And then again, another really underrated one, because it's difficult to pigeonhole, A Serious Man. This is really funny, even though it doesn't seem like it is. Yeah, this is difficult to pigeonhole. Michael Stuhlbarg gives a wonderful performance. This was shot by Roger Deakins as well. Less of a starry cast. It's more about the story, and it's kind of the most autobiographical film by the Coens. It is about Jewishness to an extent. I mean, there's rabbis in it, so it must be. But this is a small sort of sneak peek into their childhood, but not really, because the Coen brothers would never admit to films being about anything. And then another film that's really highly regarded, but I'm not quite as high on it as everybody else, Inside Llewyn Davis, with Oscar Isaac, John Goodman again, Justin Timberlake's even in it. I mean, it's a fun little film about the music scene. Oscar Isaac plays a very likeable character who just kind of misses the boat on his sort of music. Yeah, I think this is in Criterion. Blood Simple's in Criterion, and a couple of others that I'm about to show are in the Criterion. Yeah, very good. John Goodman steals the show, but again, I prefer some of the other ones more than Llewyn Davis. And then recently, Criterion released a 4K of No Country for Old Men, which looks gorgeous. Again, about fate. I mean, there is one scene that kind of not annoys me, but sort of annoys me. Is the car accident near the end of the film. But I get it, it's to show Javier Bardem's Chigurh character as being human, and how it's about fate, and the whole film's really about timing and fate and the decisions we make. But it annoyed me so much that I actually made my own version of the film, which there's a cut where Javier Bardem leaves Kelly MacDonald's house, and then it would just cut to Tommy Lee Jones talking about his two dreams. But watching it again, it didn't really annoy me as much. Other than that, the film is close to being a masterpiece. Again, I just love the fact the three main characters don't meet. We don't get shootouts that we expect to get in these kind of films. There's no kind of satisfying conclusion that we get in most of these kind of films, because that kind of doesn't happen in life. Based on the Cormac McCarthy novel, which I haven't read, but this is absolutely wonderful, and the 4K looks really good. Obviously shot by Roger Deakins, who supervised the 4K master. There's a new conversation, Joel and Ethan Coen and Megan Abbott, because they don't really like to talk about the films, but they've done in their Criterion releases. And there's a new conversation between Deakins and associate producer David Diliberto, which is wonderful, because anytime you can hear Roger Deakins talk, I mean, you could listen to Roger Deakins all day long. And there's archival interviews with Bardem, Brolin, Tommy Lee Jones and Kelly MacDonald. It's a behind the scenes documentary by Josh Brolin. There's 3 documentaries about the making of the film. And again, there's an essay by Francine Pross and a 2007 piece on the film by author Larry McMurtry. Yeah, the 4K looks really good. Lots of wonderful vistas of New Mexico, etc. But I've saved the best till last. This is my favourite Coen Brothers film by a country mile, which as we know is a mile and a half. But again, I know Coen Brothers fans, okay, I know one Coen Brothers film fan who really doesn't like this for some reason, because perhaps it's not as quirky as, like, say, Big Lebowski or whatever, but it's Miller's Crossing. Might be the film in the 90s, and that's saying something, because the 90s, especially for American cinema, was perhaps the last great decade for American cinema. This to me is one of those films that you can call perfect, or I can call perfect. They create their own world, they create their own language. The plot is wonderful. The audience aren't like a step ahead. This is Gabriel Byrne's finest 2 hours. Brilliant support by Albert Finney, John Turturro, Marcia Gay Harden, John Polito, G. Freeman, who at this point I'd never really seen him in much. But he gives an absolutely wonderful performance. He gets most of the best lines. It's one of the greatest scripts of all time, and as I said, this is as close to a perfect film for me as you can possibly get. And off the top of my head, this might be in my top 10 films of all time. It's probably in my top 20 at least. Who knows, it might actually be my highest ranking, well, maybe not my highest ranking English language film of all time, but it's certainly in the discussion. It's just absolutely perfect. This probably could do a 4K as well. Not that that's essential, but it's just absolutely perfect. Albert Finney enjoyed the shoot so much. There's actually a scene of him dressed as a maid in the women's bathroom. If you pause it, he's off to the side when Gabriel Byrne breaks in to talk to Marcia Gay Harden. That's how much Albert Finney enjoyed filming it. You know what these British actors are like. Any chance to jump into a frock and they're there. This is a 2K restoration approved by DP Barry Sonnenfeld again, and filmmakers Joel and Ethan Coen, and again Megan Abbott gets to talk to them about the film. And there's new interviews with Gabriel Byrne and John Turturro, and there's interviews from 1990 with Byrne, Turturro, Marcia Gay Harden and John Polito, and there's new interviews with Sonnenfeld, composer Carter Burwell, music editor Todd Cassow, and production designer Dennis Gassner. And there's an essay by Glenn Kenny, who does lots of stuff with noir films. But for me, this is the cream of the crop with the Coens. It doesn't get better than this, and I think this one does of depth, and this one does of substance, and it's just absolutely beautiful in every way, shape or form. And it's also funny, but perhaps not as quirky as their other stuff, so that's why some fans of the Coen Brothers don't really like it. But for me, it's an absolute stone cold classic and the best thing they've ever done. So thanks very much for watching this episode of Director Collections. Please let me know how many Coen Brothers films you have, or if you even like the Coen Brothers, and what's your favourite one, or your least favourite one, and why should I buy a copy of The Lady Killers for £1.50. So thanks very much for watching. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell.